Okay, that's 12:03 according to my clock. Let's get started. Um, Before we get started, I want to apologize. There's some work going on in the bathroom, like literally outside the door of the building I'm in. So I've done my best to reduce the noise. Hopefully, they'll go to lunch and we won't have any issues. Um, okay, so normally we roll off a list of questions and answer them on the Discords. We've done things a little differently a couple of times. Today I'm going to do it slightly differently, just so everybody knows, is there's a lot of overlap coming in on the questions that mainly revolve around Medi-Call and dm.v. And so what I want to do at the beginning of the session is review the business strategies and histories, business models, rollout plans, etc. For both of those verticals. We'll go through those in fairly in depth. And that should grab the vast majority of the questions that have come in around those two. After that, we'll have some updates on Nexology and the rest of the business. And then we can answer any of the questions that are coming off. Okay. So just for the overall business strategy right now, the 1,000-kilometer view, the work at Nexology continues. So that's ongoing. Contracts with the government, etc. We'll get in a little more later. We've recently rolled out 2 new verticals fairly well in depth. Medi-Call is out in the app stores, and we announced a couple months ago partnerships and into Datametrex electric vehicle services through Samsung and a funded company called EVAR. Now, that's the high level 1,000-kilometer view. Let's get into these business strategies. Yeah, I'm going to start with Medi-Call. All right. So a brief history for there's been a lot of questions around how we got into this vertical and why we're in it. So let me give the brief history here, and then we'll go through the current business model, financing, rollout plans, and future growth, etc. for Medi-Call. We'll do the same for dm.v right after this. So the history comes as follows. Datametrex primarily was involved in AI. And over the course of the pandemic, we got involved in healthcare through COVID. So COVID test kit distribution and also doing testing on Canadian soil for various mining production companies, businesses, etc. We about last fall, when we were considering new business opportunities, we had been requested to look in to see if there was something we could do with our AI in the medical space. And we did some ad hoc tests that proved out a concept that we could use the AI to enhance medical treatment, primarily through providing treatment in a more convenient and fast and accessible manner, and more accurately in some cases. We were asked to do this also by some of our clients. We looked into that. It seemed to work. So we announced the acquisition of Medi-Call, which will allow us to branch out into this space and provide medical solutions through the Medi-Call app, etc. And dovetails nicely with the Nexology and the core AI business. So that's the history of how we got into the vertical. Now, I want to go through a little bit about the current business model, what we're doing, etc. So the current business, we rolled out Medi-Call in the Greater Vancouver, British Columbia area a couple months ago on iOS and Android. The current business provides telehealth services for those on the app, in addition to in-person visits from medical personnel. Now, the in-person visits, can be just about anywhere where we dispatch medical personnel. The telehealth business, I mean, if you can get an app and you can download it, you can do telehealth. So that was the original rollout and what we've done to date over the past month or so. So our doctors have been dispatched. There's people that's taking these visits and doing telehealth as we speak. It's allowed us to work out a lot of the kinks in the system. It's allowed us to work out any problems that we've had in conjunction with previous technology integrations, dispatching, all these pieces. So some minor bumps for the most part. Almost all of that dispatching, et cetera, recycled from the COVID business, just repurposing it, et cetera, and that's gone very well. And so we've had very little problems over that over the past 4 to 5 weeks or so. Now that's the current business model. I'm going to roll into how this is being done and how it's being financed, et cetera. Excuse me. There was a lot of noise. I had to mute. Okay, so we're going to go over how this is being financed and then go over rollout plans and what we're doing with this moving forward. So the financing of Medi-Call was done strictly through DM. Acquisition was done a while ago, and then for building out apps and stuff, that the vast majority of the overhead for this. The personnel, the big expenses, almost everything's already covered. So we still have personnel in the medical space, nurses, doctors, etc., that are all here with the COVID business. It is very, very little overhead to pick this up. In addition to the current responsibilities that the staff had now. Something I briefly touched on earlier is a lot of the processes and stuff that allow this to work were already put into place as part of the COVID business. Okay. So the overhead and the barrier to entry to this is very low for us, which is another deciding factor when we're deciding what verticals if we want to place applications in. Now, so just we've repurposed some people. They're helping us on the medical side. We're also repurposing different processes, tech, etc., that was used on the COVID side. For it's this exact same tech when we have to dispatch people to various different locations to do COVID testing as if we dispatch medical personnel for other reasons. So the medical records pieces, the legal pieces, all of that was already done. Now, the legal pieces in particular could be quite overwhelming, particularly in the medical space. But again, like I said, it was already taken care of. So we'd already gone through all of that. Now, for any of the other financing and any monies that have gone into it, those are done off of COVID profits and stuff. So we did what we said we were going to do. We are repurposing any profits that we are making off of the COVID space back into the core of the business, the AI, and we're doing it right now through these particular verticals. But again, very, very low overhead, very low barrier to entry. And that's how this was being financed. So rollout plans, okay, and expansion plans. Okay, first, we're definitely rolling out more plans. It was specifically done at a very high-end demographic at request at the beginning, also to ensure that we have we needed about 1 month or so to just we wanted 1 month, or didn't we wanted 1 month or so just to make sure all of this worked properly before trying to roll out to huge swaths of different demographics that we don't know how they're going to behave. Because the demographic we rolled out at the beginning, we were very familiar with. Okay, so we'd been doing health services in that demographic for a couple of years. Now, they weren't integrated and streamlined like they are in Medi-Cal, and they weren't as easily accessible as they are through Medi-Cal. So that accessibility and stuff is one of the primary purposes of the app. That works well. And so that demographic it's worked. And so we're able to transition a lot of that onto the Medi-Cal app and onto the Medi-Cal team, and it worked. So that worked well. Now, the next pieces are to build on that. And so make this more accessible and bring in more people. Now, to that end, there are more plans that are going in place that will be coming out very, very soon. These plans will range from smaller amounts to larger amounts, pay as you go, etc. The idea behind all of this is, the broad idea is to make the service more accessible. Okay, and that has always been the plan. Now, the other piece that we want to touch on by rolling out these plans, additionally, is to touch on some underserved demographics. Okay, and additionally, to help with the current crises that we're seeing across the country. So there are a lot of underserved demographics, even in Canada, for the healthcare space, and this is being reflected in the news today. We've known there have been underserved demographics for a long time. Okay, but when you're seeing news headlines about people, paying to get general practitioners, or approximately 100,000 people on wait lists in other cities and stuff like that to get medical assistance, this speaks to underserved demographics, people that are not getting service, people that need service, they're willing to pay for it, they're not getting it, people that should be getting service, and for whatever reason are not able to through our current health systems in Canada. These are the people that we want to target initially. What are they? How do we get medical assistance and get these guys into the Medi-Cal program, and successfully using it for their medical needs? So underserved demographic groups, that's the primary target. That's going to be one of the things that we're rolling out very soon, next couple weeks within Medi-Cal. You're going to see that one really, really soon. Now, the next pieces of the rollout plan, in no particular order, but I want to, we need to get them out there, are both service expansion in the Vancouver area and geographic expansion. Okay? So, service expansion. This is something we've been working on for a while now. We're going to see this in the near to midterm is when these will be rolling out. When I say that, let's look at this fall, the next couple of months. Service expansions will start. So when I say service expansions, we're looking into all kinds of different areas, in addition to, just what you think of as a general practitioner or a surgeon or a medical doctor, in that case, or what most people consider that. But there are also a lot of underserved areas of medical health that need attention that can be served through this. Psychiatry, psychology. We're looking at other areas that are, it's possible for us to get into, dental health. Is that something? Prescription drug and prescription medication. Both of those are very hot topics in Canada right now. How do we do those latter two inside Medi-Cal? Not sure yet. But again, we'll take a look. But the other service expansions that we're talking about, like the mental health piece, we have a history in mental health, actually. Some of you who've been around for a while know that we were involved in suicide prevention in Korea. That's still something that is, we have sitting there, and it's something that we believe can be useful for people and can be a help both, to the people that need it, and to the business, et cetera. So we are definitely moving in that direction and going to be, expanding the physical footprint of the services offered by Medical. Now, so rough order, you'll start seeing plans first before service expansion. Those will come. Service expansion will probably, most likely come, right, next. Again, some of these are, there's going to be a little give and take as far as the dates and stuff are concerned, just due to regulatory issues and things we've got to do. But, they're solidifying quite fast. So those two are going to come off the board very quickly and out into the public. The other piece that we will be doing is geographic expansion, and this is underway. So you'll start to see Medical in other geographic areas. So, like say, different provinces, different cities, etc., across Canada. So we're working across Canada first. So we have had just let me get that out there to make sure everybody knows what we're doing. So a lot of interest, people are asking, can they get it in the United States? Currently, the answer is no. And the reason is we're working across the Canadian geographies first, because that's the lowest hanging fruit. We already have a lot of the medical hurdles cleared in those other areas. Not all of them in every single province, but we have in some provinces, 80% of them cleared already due to the COVID business, right? So we've had to establish a lot of medical credentials and stuff in the areas we operate in with the COVID business. So the primary areas we operate in the COVID business, though, are Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia, as that's where the vast majority of our business comes in. That said, we've operated seaboard to seaboard, so we've had to do it just about everywhere. And in order to operate there, every different province has different medical requirements. And these get down to stuff like storage of medical records. Like in certain provinces, you have to keep the medical record 3 years and some 5 years. And, who can do that, right? You also have to provide services, for instance, like if somebody wants to delete a medical record, you have to be able to provide them with service that does that. All these things, the dotting the I's, crossing the T's before you're allowed to open up shop. Like I said, a lot of those were taken care of in the COVID business. Again, contributing to the low overhead that we had with the Medical piece. And additionally, you also have to have staff that's licensed on the ground, right? Because of the provincial licensing, everybody's got to be licensed to operate in the provinces they're operating in. So, and those different requirements can vary. So, we have personnel on the ground in the aforementioned areas already operating there. In certain other areas, where we want to expand, where we haven't done quite as much COVID work, it's going to take a little longer to make sure that we have, all the, like I said, I's dotted, T's crossed, proper, insurance, et cetera, et cetera. And then fit, we fit in as, properly, with the medical regulators that are present in the province we're talking about. Some of the ones like, we want to move into fast are the three major ones that I mentioned earlier. And then, some of the smaller ones, we're working hard on those right now. And the goal is to expand across Canada, the whole thing. And that's the current goal. Okay. Um, Advertising. So advertising is going to kick in the next probably 3 to 4 weeks in the around the medical area, within the medical space. Um, Now we have recently brought in a team that is looking at that uh, and has already started on this. As soon as everything's ready to go and we're ready to push, make a quick push and force, you will see advertising. Now, we'll be targeting advertising at the people and the areas that we want to drum up business in. Um, so if you're outside those areas, you can use a VPN or something like that if you want to see the geographically targeted ads and things of that nature. Um, I'll say, and you should see some of them on our social media feeds too, if you're not in those areas. So they'll be pushed out there, etc. But I'm personally involved in this one and looking at the advertising and as it's being discussed and moved around. Um, so that's the rollout strategy with this. Now, how does it make sense, to people on the ground? Well, one, for everything we're allowed to do in the various provinces, and again, this differs province to province. The nuances are important, but we can um, charge this to insurance. Now, that insurance is generally provincial in Canada, although there is private health insurance for lots of people that we can also charge to this. Again, one of the things we're trying to do with this, just to reiterate, is lower the barrier to entry and make sure that we can get this to everybody that needs it. By being able to charge these things back to provincial insurance, so through your provincial healthcare systems for what they cover, and through private insurance where we're allowed to do that, where it's rolled out legal, et cetera, et cetera. Can also charge the service or the overhead or overhang in certain cases to the private insurance, again allowing the individual more access. So as you see in the United States, if without insurance and without these types of things, medical bills can grow quite quickly. Um, as a dual citizen, I've seen it on both sides of the fence. Uh, so, but that's the idea. That's the rollout, et cetera. And we're acting on it now, and more news will come. So, Medical's going. Um, and with the new geographic rollouts, service rollouts, and demographic rollouts, Medical, we're hoping expands very quickly. There have been a couple questions. We'll just touch on these real fast because we're on the Medical that I just kind of one-offs. Can Medical provide access to the COVID pieces? Yeah, no problem. Um, can Medical provide access to the COVID side of the business? Okay, that was a question that came in. Let me clarify this. We can do some COVID services through Medical. Okay. Um, and the second, so for individual services and stuff, yes. For corporate services and things, the answer that we have to run those the way they're running now. Okay, so those won't change. All right, and there's reasons for that. Primarily restrictions that are placed on us by the exchange, so the TSX. Um, the last one was, are we providing veterinary medicine through Medical? At the moment, no. And we're not looking into that at the moment right now. So we're not doing house calls for veterinary medicine. Now, will we roll it out? No, but it's not something we're looking at the moment. Okay. So guys, there's a lot of questions coming in around revenue and stuff like that. hang tight. So I'm gonna go through dm.vs, and then we'll go through that as the same. It's gonna be the same answers for both of these. Okay. All right. Next, dm.evs, Datametrex electric vehicle services. So history, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll go through the business model, rollout plans, finances, etc. So both current and model, the business model that's coming out, things we're doing coming up. So how do we get into this? This one's slightly different, although it does touch. It runs in a similar fashion to Medical. Last fall we're looking at different businesses, different verticals, things that where we can apply some of the learnings and some of the tech that we have, etc. So we ran a pilot with EVAR, which is Electric Vehicles Advanced Recharging. This is a company that's spun out of Samsung in Korea. Now, EVAR has been doing recharging services in Korea for a long time. The company is done by Samsung. It's Hyundai's in it, Kia's involved in it, and now we're involved in it. And we are, in a nutshell, their entry into the North American market. I'll get to that in just a second. But the history is, we've been doing work with Samsung and Lotte Corp in Korea for quite some time. They asked us, what could we do with our AI, centering around range anxiety and electric vehicle recharging. That was the initial request. And so we did a little work around that. Again, proof of concept, etc. And they liked it. And so we partnered with them to become basically a conduit into the North American markets for these technologies. Now, the initial technologies are all, car facing or vehicle facing. Most of it is that's where the initial demand is. The longer term stuff is electric vehicles, electric batteries, recharging, etc. is in everything and going in everything. And there's a couple visions around how this market is going to evolve. So the short term, you're looking at EVs, electric vehicles, rolling those out, infrastructure, etc. The longer term this is going everywhere. So the systems, etc., that are doing the work around charging are going to be, in the next 5 years, will be ubiquitous. They're going to be everywhere, right? You're already seeing that now. And as the world moves to, electric solutions, renewable solutions, etc., this is only going to increase. So that's how we got into it. Again, we did a short, basically investigation into this. It was successful, and now through the application of our AI and the application of EVAR's charging technologies, etc., we think that 2 + 2 = 5 on this, and we can have a significant impact in the markets we're in. So that's the history. Now, so what's the current business model? How's it being financed, etc. So the things you're hearing about now, the initial foray, like I said, is into the electric vehicle pieces. So the first things you're going to see in the rollout plan are recharging trucks and chargers, and those are already in the news. Okay. Now, so why these things, right? Well, these charging systems are 5 times as efficient as anything else on the market. What does that mean practically? It means that for every 1 charging station somebody else got, we've got 5, literally. And it's how, I don't know the specifics of it, but it's got a lot to do with electricity delivery and how this is done through the cabling and stuff. But it essentially cuts, installation costs down to 20% and expands your footprint 5 times, and is faster. So you're talking, cutting down the amount of time it takes to charge. So these particular pieces help solve the range anxiety by getting more chargers out there and providing, access to them and making them quicker. Now, additionally, there's also trucks, et cetera, that are in the works and almost here, right? So we're ahead of the game as far as this is concerned. Now, what's also going on in here is the infrastructure around these things. So apps, everything runs on an app. This is not going to be any different, right? There are apps, and I'm going to get into that with the business model here in a little bit, go into that in a little more detail. But these initial pieces coming across are the lowest hanging fruit. A lot of this, well, not a lot, almost all the tech is developed in Asia. And in order to get it into North American markets, there's a process to do that. They have to change voltages. A lot of the physical hardware and stuff has to be modified, et cetera. In addition, the control systems have to be checked. We've got to make sure, that all the translations work. The apps have to be translated, redone, et cetera. And all that's happening right now. Now, the chargers and the trucks, et cetera, these are the lowest hanging fruit. They're the fastest thing to get across the board. And they're rolling in the case of some of these pieces, over a month early. Now, that's great. So what does it mean? Well, it means that those conversions are working quickly and they're working faster than we expected. Okay, that's obvious. But the second thing it means is it also rolls out the red carpet to, further expansion on this model, as we see that, hey, we can get things into the market and we can do them very quickly. So those first pieces, okay, great. How do they work? Well, the apps come across, you'll be able to charge at stations, use the apps, et cetera. That's for the individual consumer. Additionally, we're looking into in pursuing corporate relationships. So you're talking about charging technology through different entities, such as dealerships, malls, places anywhere you can put a charger. Corporate partnerships, things like that. Those are all out. We also are on the side of interoperability. So we want, these things to work everywhere. Well, let me explain that while we hit interoperability and why this is important. Right now, there's basically two visions of the charging world. And they're not, okay. They're basically two visions. Okay. One is a closed infrastructure, and much like you see with Apple products. So there's a certain company out there that wants to own the car, the charger, the app, the charging system, the navigation systems, all the infrastructure. So you buy into their ecosystem the same way you would buy into Apple computers, and you use all their products, you use all their applications, and they've tied you into a walled garden. Okay, so you can't exit that walled garden unless you are prepared to not use some of their things, and in certain cases it just won't work, right? So you're in or you're out. So they own, soup to nuts, the whole thing. So if you're going to use an electric vehicle, this is the way it's going to be. The other vision is much like we have today, where these different responsibilities are distributed. And that means, car manufacturers make cars. People that provide fuel for those cars, well, in our current society, for the vast majority of it, those are gas stations, and those are owned by petroleum companies. They also don't make the apps. They don't do the navigation. Google does it, Waze does it, people like that. And it's a distributed system. I can work, with Google's apps and, BP's gas or Shell's gas, Hyundai's car, Ford's car, doesn't matter. Bring what you want to the table, it works, right? Right now, we're on that latter side, okay? So currently, we're working with companies that are working on the interoperability vision, okay? And these companies, they want to do one thing, they want to do it really, really well, okay? Now, so what does that mean? Well, as you see with computers and stuff, there's room for both markets. Uh, I don't see any reason why not. They currently coexist, not in a large way, as the distribution of electric vehicles isn't large, but they do currently coexist. Now, um, can but that is one going to win versus the other? My prediction? No, neither one will win. I do think um, that the barrier to entry for stuff like electric vehicles is so much higher than for, like, say, a laptop and a phone. That having a walled garden in the second most expensive thing you're going to buy as a consumer, I personally, it'll work. It works now. Um, I personal opinion only, personally think it'll be much smaller demographic just due to not being accessible. But that comes down to also, you know, it's one thing to compete with smartphones and distribution of those. It's a whole nother piece to compete um, with cars. All right. And if you can't piggyback off the existing infrastructure, I don't think you're going to be able to do it. And that's how smartphones came out. I mean, they piggyback on phone infrastructure. They still use landlines. Your calls get routed to landlines and then rerouted back up to cell towers, et cetera. So, this stuff wasn't built from the ground up. It was built on the back of what was already there. Um, uh, but that's sorry for going down that rabbit hole just a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understands the interoperability piece. So moving towards greater interoperability um, gives people greater latitude to use your products. Like, we want everybody to be able to use our products, not just one particular demographic. Okay. Now, so currently under that current business model, the revenue is tied to those partnerships, the corporate partnerships that we do, the trucks that we bring over, and the services we provide in addition, to what we do at the corporate level with the AI. So you're looking at, corporate contracts, corporate partnerships, and then individual payments. Those are the revenue models that are there. Now, moving forward, what's down the line? So we've gone on with the two visions of charging, walled garden, et cetera. Well, we're going to be moving this out a lot like we're moving out Medicall. We will move it out geographically, as the geographies become available, and we're confident we can move in there successfully. First geography is Vancouver, just like in Medicall, and we're already rolling things out there. Now, the other thing that the interoperability allows us to do is it allows us more latitude when it comes to moving as far as the business is concerned. So this allows us to do things like what we announced today, where we can do partnerships with CyberSwitch. And, for instance, we do, and this covers this, but it's not one of the main goals, but cyber switching's technology does allow you to work in some diverse environments. Okay. And Canada definitely has some challenging environments. Okay. So it does tick that box. We do have a lot of requests coming out of this in some pretty hard, harsh environments. So not just, say Montreal, when it gets to -20, you think about what people in Nunavut are going through or something like that. Now, that's one thing. But the other thing it does, like I said, allowing us to move into the different businesses. Everybody go look where, CyberSwitch is headquartered. Um, where, by being on the interoperability side of things, this allows us to make moves like that. So we can partner up and we can bring people into the fold that can help us with the expansion, move things faster, etc. We're never tied down to exactly how one player or two players in a certain market want to move. Now, longer term pieces in the charging infrastructure as it comes out. So, medium term stuff, AI. What can we do inside the AI? Well, the AI is something in a system like this that you're not going to see at a consumer level, okay? Or for the most part, you'll get its effects, but it's not like it jumps out at you. You're in the same way that you're using it now. The AI can be used to make the batteries in their charging system smarter. It can also be used, for routing. The predictive analytics are really key in this. So how do we take these systems and adapt them faster to different changing markets and strategies? AI allows us to do that. That allows us to adapt to those markets, those strategies, where to place things, how to reduce range anxiety. We can run 10,000 different models of, say, how to travel between Vancouver and, I don't know, Toronto by car within a few minutes, figure out where we want distribution points, etc. That's one piece. But the next piece is allows us to adapt. So it's not just vehicle recharging. Well, when we say vehicle recharging, don't just think cars. So in the longer term, you're already rolling out mass transportation. We already have electric buses in a lot of places. You're rolling out trucks. These places are going, this is the same tech that, say, running the 7-Elevens that are running off AI that we've seen in the news, both in Korea and outside. Electric batteries, electric recharging, electric vehicles, this tech is going into everything. Drones, trucks, just to name a few. I mean, it's in your in some refrigerators now. That's where this really is exciting to me. So electric vehicles going to take the world by storm. The infrastructure around electric vehicles is going to be 15 times larger than the vehicles themselves. The stuff that powers these, that coordinates these, that allows us to work on different types of predictive analytics from places like Nunavut all the way down to Mexico in different conditions. How to adapt those. That infrastructure is massive. I mean, just huge. And this is where we see that there's a real win-win with this, and it's also the same thing. The EVAR and the companies that are involved with them saw in this opportunity, right? And which is why they chose to partner with us, right, to do this, because the long-term ramifications of this are huge. So now, advertising, one thing, advertising on a corporate level right now is already underway. Unless you're involved in some of the corporate pieces, you probably won't see this. This is, enterprise sales. All that's working, right? So enterprise sales and ads, those are on their way. As the infrastructures evolve in stuff, we have looked into advertising. How that rolls out in dm.v is going to be something we look at over the next couple months as these, as these pieces come up. So the advertising plan is not as solidified as the Medical advertising plan. Again, the business is a lot newer, so expect more about the advertising plans later on. But again, the corporate stuff already underway. So, just to be, how is this being financed? Well, the first financial thing was, we entered into a partnership, a couple months ago, and that's in the press release, where we partnered up with EVAR in Korea, and they did that by taking $10 million stake in our company. Again, this speaks volumes for what they think this is worth. We during the negotiations, we wanted to pay cash. Cash is better for us right now, but they see no value in it. They don't need our cash. They really want to know, they really want to be a part of this rollout. So that's the initial financing. Okay. And with that comes, some of the trucks and chargers, etc. How that financing evolves going forward is going to depend on, how fast that market rolls out. So but again, the overhead on this one is extraordinarily low. The vast majority of what we are bringing to the table here was constructed, with Nexology and with some of the pieces that we've done with Samsung over the last couple of years. So it was already there. So the commitment on our end is very, very low. So, which makes the overhead very, very low. Again, dovetailing nicely, with what we've done already, a lot of overlap, in an entirely new market, right? So that's exactly how we're looking at it. Okay. All right. So give me just 1 second. This one's going to go long. So that's the overview for the two businesses. I hope that covers the vast majority of the questions that came through on those. Give me 2 minutes. Just mute. Need to use the washroom real quick. And then I'll go into some of the specific questions for as long as we can. Hold on. Okay. Sorry about that. Just really had to take a quick washroom break. Whew. Oh, quick question. What about offering technology to other EV companies? That's exactly the type of stuff that we're talking about. Um, there's enough room for a lot of players here, and we're betting on the side of interoperability right now. So we can do that, which much like what you just saw, with what we're doing with cyber switching. So that can do it. All right. Quick COVID update. People are asking, sales are strong. So sales are still going. It's still rolling. I just came back from Vancouver and things are trucking along out there. There's a couple of, our two largest customers on the COVID side have asked us for projections through March and September of 2023. That's where the COVID is. It hasn't slowed down. Eventually it will, but we're not sure when. That's what it is. People have asked about margins on test kits. They fluctuate. So margins on test kits fluctuate. It's that simple. Now, That's due to, manufacturing, et cetera. Those things have gone when the pandemic started to some cases upwards of 40 US per test, down to, in some cases, we've seen them for $1. That's not very often, but, lots that are about to expire, things like that. So yeah, margins on test kits vary just like they're going to vary on any pharmaceutical product like that. It's not well established. Okay. Next question. I briefly touched on this. I give a quick mixology update. Um, it's still going. So, we're on a big contract with the government, and it's still going. So it has, contract's going. So if the contract stops or anything happens, we'll let you know. As we said, this is a big one. We're in it with partner company. That we're working on together. Right now, I can't release a lot of details around this just because it's still covered with classification, et cetera. Those are going to loosen up, I've been told, in the next couple months. But again, I have to wait until I'm allowed to share those pieces. But it's still going. It's still there. It's not, and we passed the first hurdle. We're on to the second one. When that judging and everything, all that comes up, I'm sure we'll pass that one too. We have, it's been on, so still going. But again, this is a multi-year thing. It's not something that, where we, it's not, a 6-month contract. This is a big one. So multiple years, multiple milestones, et cetera. But it is continuing. Okay, so one-off questions here that are coming in. Government contract, etc. Okay, news. What are we doing about news? Okay, so we started on new advertising campaigns today. And those initially, there's some stuff rolling out in the US and Canada, which is going on right now. And as those advertising campaigns get underway, if they're working, et cetera, we'll roll them out to other areas. We're doing this now as we think that, at the current stock prices, we're in a really good buy, and we want more people to know about that. TSXV update. So we've turned in everything we know to do about the TSX uplisting. We've been told that it's just a waiting game at this time. As soon as we've been if we've got information about that, yes or no, we will announce it. We are waiting to announce that just as much as everybody else is waiting to hear about it. There's been a lot of work that's been put into that. So again, it's just hurry up and wait. The paperwork's in. As soon as we have more information, we'll let you know. So that's already been taken care of. Questions around Nexology. Can Nexology be customized to work as search engines? Yes, you could do it. So Nexology does function as a search engine now. Now, not in the sense of Google, right? It's not a general purpose search engine, right? It's not a Bing or a Google or something like that. It's more along a targeted search engine. So if you need to know about specific things, then yeah, we can go out into the public space and any other place that we have access to the data and search through all that data and find the relevant pieces that you're looking for. Absolutely. And that's just basics, right? That's one of the basic things that's been in the application for many, many, many years. And it's a way to call your search space. That works on the web, off the web, forums, media, social media, email, text, whatever. If you've got digital copy and it has a timestamp and text, we can work with it. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, so assuming acquisitions occur with perspective, is there a possibility of going into the smart glasses space? Ah, it is a possibility. It is not something we have looked into. Okay. We have not done a lot of work around AR. So, uh, personally, as far as the company is concerned, AR is not our thing. It is a discipline in and of itself. And if you have seen some of the companies involved, Apple, Microsoft, uh, well, Facebook with their VR stuff, or Magic Leap is one out of Florida. It's a very slow moving and hard to get right piece. Um, so no, AR is not in our wheelhouse and not going to be in our wheelhouse in the projected future as a discipline. How long is the LOI valid for Perspectum? It's still valid. The original LOI is still valid, or should be still valid. I'll have to double check that from a legal perspective. And but right now there's no traction. Uh, okay. Now, given continued COVIDs, is a second NCIB possible? It's possible. It's definitely possible. We are definitely, as a group, looking into our capital structure and what we can do about that as far as institutional investing, getting more eyeballs on it, etc. And NCIB, if the board and management thinks that this is a great way to bring more value to the company and shareholders, we'll do it. Our current NCIB was pretty successful. We spent millions of dollars getting some shares back into DM's hands, and the board was satisfied and happy, management was satisfied and happy with that initial program. So I'm sure we'll look favorably on a very similar program, moving forward. Okay, so I've got quite a few questions around revenue and financials and things like that. A lot of them come in of the form, can you put X in Y column, or can you put Z in column A, and can you differentiate out between this, can you separate this particular line number into constituent parts and itemize it? The short answer is, no, we can't in terms of the financials. All right. So there's a format for reporting the financials, how it has to be done, when it has to be done, etc. And this is all governed, by the exchange and, the securities laws and regulations in the country. And that's it. Like, I can't change those. I do understand that people would like to see those, certain things done in a certain fashion like that. But unfortunately, your hands are tied on a lot of those. So if you're asking me about the financials and to break it down in a specific manner, probably can't do that. So like I said, they're formatted, and that's the way they come out. Will we be given revenue guidance as things roll out? Earnings projections, these types of things. Yes, as the businesses evolve and the verticals evolve, yeah, we'll be talking about those, and we will get that into everybody's hands, and want people to know what they're dealing with, etc. So yeah, we will be doing that. Now, switching gears, one question. So, how is it like to work with NATO, and what are some advantages and disadvantages? I have been working with various government entities for now 20 something years now. In general, it's eye opening the amount of money they have. And it's the same as working with any other military organization or anything like that. You're told what you need to know, and that's pretty much it. Now, that being said, NATO does have an ambassador side to it, so it's a little softer than working directly with militaries like U.S. military, Canadian military, etc. Um, but it's need to know basis, and that's what you get. Now that said, the advantages, like I said, huge purse. Also, they have the ability. Their Rolodex is incredible. Like they know everybody. So if you need to know something, you need to be in contact with somebody or something like that within, it's affiliated in NATO, they generally can make it happen. So that's great. I think the worst thing about working with them is they're slow as the dickens. Uh, they take government red tape and amp it up 100-fold. Uh, so that's the disadvantage. The big disadvantage with working with NATO is everything takes a very, very long time. And opposed to the way we like to operate, which is, hopefully as quick as we can, that can get a little frustrating. So overall, what should you look out for? Keep an eye out for the Metacall expansions. Keep an eye out for that news that we talked about, both in geography services, demographics, plans, etc. Keep an eye out for what we're doing on dm.EVS. There's a lot of news coming out of that as it's expanding very quickly and going very rapidly with the partnerships, etc. So those are going to be coming out soon. And I thank you guys for joining us today. We're going to, went 5 minutes long or so, but I was trying to get everything in here and had a few extra minutes on the agenda. So we'll be back next month. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.